Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Wow, what a crazy week, but it's Thursday and tomorrow's Friday. Yay! Anyway, so last week we started talking about reptilians, and actually I'm going to just put this on here. And so there were three main tenets that I was hoping to share in this presentation. So I talked about where the conspiracy theory about reptilians living in underground bases came from. And these are their three main claims: that reptilians live in underground bases, that they possess advanced technology, including genetic engineering, and their goal is to control the world via the New World Order. And so last week I talked about how there is this global narrative, and you can be in one area of the world and find stories that are remarkably similar to narratives that you find in a completely different section of the world. And so today we are going to be starting to talk about the underworld, because in antiquity, that's what it was called. It wasn't called, they didn't refer to these underground realms as underground bases. It was the underworld. And the concept of the underworld is found in every culture on the planet. And in essence, especially in deep antiquity, it was the place where people went to when they died. So it wasn't necessarily, and really hasn't been associated with hell, double air quote, but it's where you went to when you died, and there was no judgment one way or the other. And so, but also tied to that, there are some of the gods whose home was in the underworld, deep within the earth, deep within a mountain, or deep beneath the waters. And so we have a connection to gods living there. And access is often described as being through the mouth of a cave. All right. Got to find my mouse. There we go. And so there are a number of stories, and you find a lot of these in like Native American culture, but you find them in England and other places where the entrance may appear open at one point in time. Sorry, looking for my glasses. May appear open at one point in time and then disappear from view completely and instantly. So there's this one Native American story that I'm recalling right at the moment, where there is this hunter and he sees the deer higher up in a mountain, and he follows the deer up, and there's an entrance to this cavern, and he goes inside the cavern, and there are all these people and houses and structures. And he stays there for a little while. And when he comes out, like a number of years have passed by, and he goes to take like his grandson, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, to the location where this cave opening was, and it was gone. So they might find these openings accidentally, like when they're hunting. There are stories where individuals are taken to this underground realm. Like there are a number of stories, these come out of the UK, England area, where a baby is stolen and a log is left in its place, but then a nursing mother is then abducted and taken into the underground realm to nurse the baby, because the mom, air quote, is unable to do so because she doesn't have the right kind of milk to nurse the baby. There are stories, you find these also, where an individual is lured into this underground realm. And these stories are always tied to some kind of missing time. They go into this underground base, this underground realm, And when they come back out, time has gone. So you think of like Rip Van Winkle, he was gone for 40 years. And so there are people that go in and they think they're there overnight, but 20 years has passed, and there are these legends of, this guy that used to live in the town, he just disappeared. And the only remnants of his family are like his grandchildren. It's also identified that these stories, they're not just empty caves, they are cities inside the earth. And you don't get a ton of descriptions of who's living in this area, but they're not necessarily described as being human. I'll just say that. So as an example, because I like to give more specific things, in the Indian epic, the Vishnu Purana, Patala, sorry, bad phonics, Patala, which is this underground world, is 70 Johannes beneath the surface of, or 70,000 Johannes beneath the surface of the earth. I'm just going to say that it's really, really, really far down. Gilgamesh, in the epic bearing his name, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is described as having traveled 12 leagues into the dark denseness until he arrived at a light-filled chamber of the underworld. So again, 12 leagues, pretty far. We know from myth that the home of the Sumerian fertility god, so he was a water god, which is located in the watery deep, is described as having his house built of gold, silver, and lapis. And there are other structures down there also made of gold, silver, bronze, and other miraculous materials. Plato, now we've all heard of Plato, believed that the earth was littered with a series of hollows that were filled with trees, airs, fruits, and flowers. And in the Iliad, so there's the Odyssey and then the Iliad, written by Homer. Homer said that an anvil would take 9 days to reach the realm of Hades, which is the Greek underworld, the land of the dead, from the earth. But it would take another 9 for it finally hit the bottom of Tartarus, which is the lowest level of the underworld. Okay, so with that said, when you talk about the underworld, there's not just one level. It's kind of like Dante's Inferno, where he talks about the 9 levels of hell and the 9 levels of heaven. So in India, according to them, the underworld is composed of 7 realms or dimensions. The 7th and lowest of them is called Patala, which I mentioned, or Nagaloka, the region of the Naga, the snake people. The Mayan, so we have India on one side of the world, and then we have the Maya in the Popol Vuh, which is one of their major historic texts. The underworld was entered through a cave on the Earth's surface, and you entered into the first of 9 levels. From Egypt, there's the Book of Caverns, and it tells us that there are 6 caverns of the underworld. And in the Sumerian text, Inanna's descent into the netherworld, Inanna is required to pass through 7 gates to finally reach the bowels of the underworld, so the deepest area of the underworld. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, so going through the underworld from level to level was apparently not that easy. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead describes the path by which, and this is the deceased god king, must enter to or travel to enter Duat, which is their heaven kind of area. And there were challenges and tests that they had to undergo in order to move from one area to the other. Back to the Popol Vuh, the Mayan Popol Vuh, it tells us that the way is fraught with challenges the individual must pass to enter the realm of the dead, the underworld. Zilbaba, the name of their underworld, seems to be rife with tests and trials and traps for anyone who came into the city. Even the roads to Zilbaba were filled with obstacles. And then back to Egypt, the Book of Gates, the soul is required to pass through a series of gates at each hour of the journey. Each gate is guarded by a different serpent deity that is associated with a different goddess. Okay. So in addition to this underground area, it is believed that there's more than one of these, and I'm going to say bases. And these bases are connected to each other via tunnel systems that connect one underground realm to another. So Plato, again, confirms claims made by modern ufology. Plato states hollows are connected by subterranean channels. But Plato's not the only one who refers to these tunnels that lie beneath the earth. Inca legends, so Maya is in Mexico, Inca is in South America in Peru, tell of a vast network of tunnels that crisscross the length and breadth of the planet, complete with underground cities. Pizarro, the Spanish conquistadors, entered Peru hearing of the Inca gold being held in the tunnels that were thousands of years old beneath Cusco. In more recent years in Cusco, people have entered these caverns or entered these tunnels and have never been seen again. One man did make it out and brought with him 2 bars of gold, but according to officials, he had gone mad. But it makes me wonder, did he go mad, or was he actually describing what he saw, and what he saw was too over the top for the locals to handle? And then in the Apache Indians report that their ancestors took refuge in ancient tunnels during a cataclysmic disaster on the earth. And they wandered these immense passageways for years, carrying, and I'm going to air quote, the seeds of life in the new world. Many people thought they did hang out with the ant people, and some suggest that these ant people were actually the Greys. But while they were there, these residents taught them all kinds of new things. And they report that they went into the cavern in an area that they were familiar with. And when they came out of the cavern, a very long time later, they were unfamiliar with the land, unfamiliar with the territory. It was just a very different place. So it would be like getting in a tunnel somewhere in the northeast where there's trees and water and all kinds of stuff, and traveling and then ending up in New Mexico where it's kind of, a high delta or, plaza and dry and an arid environment. It would just be a very different thing. Okay. So I'm going to stop there for this week, because next week we're going to talk reptilians and what myth has to say about the reptilians themselves. And so if you missed the beginning of this presentation, I started it last week and I did break it out so you can just listen to the presentation by itself. This is part 2. Next week will be part 3, where we'll be talking about reptilians, because now you know all about the underground bases. And we will go from there. And so before I go and say hi to everyone, I just want you to remember that, I'm going to start doing some free readings here. And these readings are just very general readings of whatever comes to me in this moment. If there are things going on in your life where you need some deeper insights, you have some specific questions, you feel stuck, you have a health related concern, please do reach out to me via my website, soulhealer.com, and schedule a private consultation. That would be great. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. And also down below in the comment area, the setup for the show, are all my links to social media: Twitter, Rumble, BitChute, Facebook. If you could go and like, subscribe, set up notifications, all of those things that really kind of help you, build a population, because I love doing this, and I would love for you guys to share the word, with any friends that you might have that you think they could use my help and services. If you're listening to the show not in the live format and you would like to join the show and get a free on-air reading, the easiest place to go is to YouTube and go to my channel, Just Energy Radio on YouTube. So if you go there on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central and click the live link, it will get you the opportunity to join the chat. So with all of that said, I am going to kind of go through the comments. If you would like to get a reading from me or want to communicate with me directly, please use all capital letters so I can separate out, what you're trying to communicate with me and the conversation that's going on in the background, because you guys have become a very lively group. And I love that you're being a lively